Good and gracious God, let your word for us this day be heard somehow among the words which I speak, and let our hearts be made new when your word we hear. Amen. At moments of historic import, as venerable institutions celebrate 150th anniversaries, it is customary to lift up and celebrate past achievement. To survive, let alone thrive, for 150 years is no small matter. To extend the life of a church through multiple generations is not a simple task. The average lifespan of a church in America is less than 75 years. To have doubled the average already and still be vital as we are, this suggests a history of greatness, a past to be celebrated, and we have done so this day. But celebrations of this sort are always tricky in churches, because churches that last, the ones that endure, know that they do so not because of the past or because of the brilliance of the human beings within them. Churches last because of the unfailing goodness of God. And greatness in churches is about truly being humble enough to listen for the Spirit, to follow her dynamic lead, rather than relying on our own counsel. If Hancock has a great and honorable past, it is because our ancestors listened when the Spirit spoke. And if Hancock is to have a great and honorable future, it will be because we resolved this day to listen as God still speaks. The story of the birth of the church, as told in the book of Acts, is instructive. The dispirited and fretful disciples of Jesus are holed up together in one place when all of a sudden God moves. A mighty wind, tongues of fire, and all at once the women and men are filled with the Spirit, and they spill out into the streets where they encounter people from all over the world who do not speak their language. And yet, somehow, some way, communication occurs. Human need is understood and is met by divine love. What each person needs, he or she is able to share in their own language, and what the Spirit offers in return is heard in that same way. Each person speaks, and more important, each person is heard, and a great cacophony results. The greatness of God is celebrated not in one shared language that everyone must learn and understand, but in a great multiplicity of languages in which each one can participate just as they are and still somehow obtain what they need most. And this is a stunning vision. Many strangers become one people, not by abandoning their uniqueness and becoming like each other, but precisely by having their uniqueness heard, understood, and celebrated. Now, at our best, Hancock has always been the church in just this sort of way, listening to the voices of people around us, hearing those voices in their uniqueness, and seeking to respond with ministries that are in harmony with what we know and believe, and that are responsive in ways that we hope the other can understand. We've been the church in this way, trusting that God's generosity abounds, that there is more than enough love and justice and peace in God to go around, so that we don't have to hoard it and hang on to it, but can share it freely with everyone around us. And when we have trusted the Spirit speaking in this way, then we have found our way forward through ministries of justice and kindness, which celebrate the uniqueness of each human being without insisting on the conformity of all. Again and again, like our forebears in Acts, we have been a part of this great cacophony of ministry. Many strangers becoming one people, not by abandoning our uniqueness, but precisely by having our uniqueness heard and met and understood. It is, of course, no coincidence that at the very moment we celebrate 150 years of Hancock Ministries, we have also begun together the conversations we are calling Hancock Next, our conversations about the church to be. Because our community is vitally alive with the presence of the Spirit of God, rushing into and through and around us like a mighty wind, we know that it is not enough to celebrate a wonderful past, because the Spirit of God never leaves the disciples of Jesus nostalgic, resting on their laurels, all the while increasingly fretting about the future as they hide behind locked doors. Even now, my friends, the Spirit is dancing, pushing us once more to listen to the needs of others, both outside of our congregation and the voices within. Even now, the Spirit is pushing us out of placidly accepting our own loneliness and instead giving voice to our deep longings to connect with others, to know other people deeply, and to be known by them in return. Even now, the Spirit is reminding us to listen to the voices in need, LGBTQ asylum seekers fleeing their native lands because being alive in their country is a death sentence. We listen to the refugee and the immigrant, hardworking and hopeful, coming to this great land, seeking a new and better way. We listen to our own beleaguered and battered planet, its life strangled by too much carbon poured into the air as the consequence of a bad trade for the shallow luxuries of easy energy. Even now, we hear the voices of those in need. And yet, even now, we are beginning to hear with new clarity stories from within our congregation, hearing need in our own voices. The voices of our children and youth and families beset with the demands of perfection, of always succeeding, of always performing at peak efficiency, squeezing out of all of us the room for rest, the room for God. Even now, we are hearing from the voices of our seniors, often surprised to find themselves grown so old, wondering how to live in years they never expected to have. Even now, we hear voices of sisters and brothers in the pews, crying out to one another of loneliness and the desire to connect, the hope for friendship and acceptance. Friends, it is the Spirit who gives us the voice to declare what we need. It is the Spirit who will teach us how to hear and to respond. This past Easter, David Clark gave our children a gift. Do you remember? The gift of the word avuncular. Now, according to Merriam-Webster, it means, quote, suggestive of an uncle in kindliness and geniality. Now, neither David nor I would want to be understood to be saying that only uncles can be kindly and genial. Clearly, aunts can be so as well, and frankly, they're often better at it than our sometimes weird uncles are. But David chose the word for its connotations of kindness and geniality. And on this auspicious day, I give this word to you once more, because I believe that the gifts of kindness and geniality toward one another are the gift of the Spirit, that is even now being given to Hancock Church this day. Kindliness and geniality toward one another, understood not to be replacements for the works of justice and peacemaking, tasks that are in our DNA that we will continue to strive and do, not to replace the works of justice, but to be added to them. We have often been quick to respond to needs of others outside of our church. We have not always been as able to hear and meet the need for community within our congregation. A few weeks ago, it was my privilege to travel with the Hancock Youth Group to Neon, Kentucky on their annual mission trip. It was, of course, inspiring to see them swinging hammers and painting walls and hauling buckets of gravel, all to improve homes that they will never get to live in. Most of the time they did it smiling while they worked, even singing. But even better than the works of justice for the poor that these kids were a part of that week was watching our youth treat each other with complete kindness and total geniality. It ain't easy being a teenager anywhere, and especially not in this neighborhood where the pressures to excel are complete and unrelenting. It ain't easy being a teenager anywhere, and the danger of feeling that you are utterly alone amid the surging changes that are coming to body, mind, and spirit, that temptation is real. No, it ain't easy being a teenager anywhere. But in our HYG, there is a promise made and a promise kept that no matter who you are, no matter what you do or can't do or leave undone, no matter how odd or strange or inadequate you feel, you belong. We got you. Our youth say again and again to one another, we got you. You're safe here. We're glad you're here. You belong here. We got you. It's kind. It's genial. It's downright avuncular. And I'm here to tell you this day that this feeling of utter belonging, this is what everyone of every age, of every race or gender or economic class or creed or sexual orientation or national origin or mental or physical or social condition wants. Everybody is hungry for this feast of acceptance. We all want to be treated kindly. We all want to be treated with geniality. We all want to belong. We all want to be a part of a community where we are got. We all want avuncularity. All God's children all over the earth, and even God's own green earth itself, all want to know that we belong. That someone cares if we live or die, that our neighbors want us not just to live, but to thrive. We all want to belong in a place where it's safe to say, oh, I'm hurting here. I'm in a dark place. I'm afraid. And knowing that when we speak these words of truth, we will have the experience of of others meeting us in our hour of need and saying, it's okay. We're here for you. You belong. We got you. In a moment, you'll have an opportunity to sign your name to a renewed covenant to be a part of Hancock Church. And I know you. And I know that you're a people who like to write and edit and wordsmith. And you're a people who insist on knowing exactly what it is you're signing up for. But please, my friends, don't get caught up this morning in parsing the verbiage. Because most of all, you are a people who want to be a part of an avuncular congregation, a group of God's people, kind and genial for you and for all. And that, more than anything else, is what you're signing up for this morning. You're signing up for a series of avuncular tomorrows in a congregation where you are loved, accepted just as you are, where sisters and brothers and Jesus himself say to you, it's okay. You belong. You're lovable and loved. We got you. Hancock has been and always will be a church committed to the world. Hancock can and must also be a church committed to one another, in which anyone and everyone, certainly including you, can say out loud that you need help, and hear in return a sister, a brother say, here I am, how can I help? In the name of God, the God who made us, in the name of Christ who saves us from aimlessness and sin, in the name of the Spirit who still this day rushes to us as if by a mighty wind. In the name of that God, let us resolve to be an avuncular people today, tomorrow, and always. Amen.